Oh no! It's me, I'm back with part 3. I really gotta get on this if I'm gonna make it through the year in 2 months. You kidding? That's so many videos, I'm not gonna make it. It's crazy, there's just so much good music this year. There's too much to talk about. This will most likely bleed into next year, and then I'm trapped. This was a dumb idea. Guys, I don't have good ideas. Nobody watches these. That's a downside of it. Anywho, welcome to part 3. So here are 10 more albums from the year 2018 that I really enjoyed. And this will cover roughly April 6th to April 30th, so almost all of April. Alright, if my neighbor is done apparently doing Foley artistry for a film adaptation of Stomp, I can get back to the albums I liked in 2018. Take it away, me! Thanks, me. I already did that gag. I don't know why I did it again. Winterfelleth, if that's how it's pronounced, is an English folk-influenced black metal band, or self-described English heritage black metal, and The Hallowing of Heirdom is their 6th full-length album, and one that is completely absent of the black metal they had founded their band on. This album is entirely acoustic-driven. For a while, gotta admit, that was bothersome. I half expected to jump out of my chair as they harshly dropped into blast beats and tremolo picking, but halfway through, when I had long accepted that it was too deep into the album to come around now, I began to focus on how successful of a sort of concept album it was. I've always sensed that Winterfelleth has long desired to distinguish themselves from bands with similar influences, and that time where they covered an Ulver song and nobody seemed to notice for a while only cemented that. While you can certainly hear Ulver in the DNA of this album, which is by no means a bad thing, I really get a sense for the ideas they play with, the specific pocket of history and culture that is very much part and parcel with England and not Scandinavia. I think this is a beautiful record, and it's full of lush instrumentation and historic atmosphere, and its beauty in simplicity. Though I can see if the charm of it doesn't grab you initially, you're probably gonna just be confused why they decided to do this at all. These guys are pretty great at writing black metal. Why didn't they just do that? I get that. There are moments where I thought this would be a good spot to crash into metal right now. Just do it right now. Ooh, you missed it. That was your moment. But I admire the ambition and the valor behind seeing this album through. I'm all for drastically changing course when you get too comfortable. It's a very Ulver thing to do. I didn't mean that to, diminish what Winterfelleth has done here, but, it's a thing that Ulver does. They do a lot of things Ulver does. I'm sorry. That's good. I like that. None is an American depressive atmospheric black metal band, and Life Has Gone On Long Enough, released April 11th, is their 2nd full-length album. I didn't do the date for the last album. Did I? No, I did? No, I didn't. Winterfelleth album came out April 6th. Anywho, this is None's 2nd full-length album. Little is known about the proprietors of None. For all I know, it could be one person, it could be a full band, it could be an EVP recorded in a suicide forest. If you are unfamiliar with metal projects that would tag themselves as depressive or suicidal, this is a rather clean and impressive introduction to those concepts. A lot of the forebearers of the genre will feature a raw bedroom recording aesthetic that is mostly absent from this release. So what you will find in this album is a slower, lurching, melancholic brand of black metal built on minor keys and pained, tortured, I am in literal agony vocals, which in this release extends to segments of outright sobbing and really unsettling laughter from whatever ghost they caught on tape to represent their lead vocalist. And even though I am quite fond of the utterly sad piano and fuzzy guitar-laden instrumentation, and the more atmospheric passages that indulge in spoken word and sound effects, the impressive array of vocals are the star of the show for me, especially in tracks like Desiderate, where these seething, powerful, wretched vocals are backed up by reverb-drenched wailing in the background. Oh, the way it comes together is just beautiful to me. It really exemplifies the strange cathartic quality I find in depressive black metal. I get a lot out of their tendency to unleash really primal, vulnerable, and honest emotion. And I'm not assuming these expressions were off the cuff. They went into the studio thinking, alright, so I'm gonna cry for this quiet acoustic segment. I understand that, but I can't just cry. I could probably make the motions and try to force my way there, but I'm gonna need to listen to Michael Giacchino's score for Lost or watch a clip of when Stitch is reading The Ugly Duckling, and then even just thinking about that. Yeah, they had to get to a place where they could pull this off. It's a real tightrope between goofy and melodramatic and powerful, and even though, the very concept of all this is like a niche within a niche that will most likely be incredibly off-putting to many, I think it's a beautiful album. I ask you, what is more metal than allowing yourself to openly weep? Haru Namori is a Japanese singer, songwriter, and rapper, and Haruto Shiora, released April 11th, is her debut full-length album. Seeming to sell itself short as J-pop, this album mixes elements from a number of genres like noise rock, shoegaze, alt-rock, J-rock, shiny synthesizers that bring stuff like Anamanaguchi and the Katamari Damacy soundtracks to mind. A lot of the pieces of this album sound familiar, but it's as though they've been disassembled and repurposed into a super quirky and unconventional backdrop to Haru's vocals, which drift from idle pop shouting to rapping that is often hurried and frantic and bordering on spoken word. From what I can decipher from the lyrics, which, when it comes to translating Japanese lyrics, it's a wild ride, but I'm picking up on them being a mix of cutesy wordplay and angsty violent imagery, and I'm not mad at that. There's a great deal of raw experimental energy, like this album could go literally anywhere it wants to, and I'm just along for the ride. That's all I have to say on that one now. Chetivel is my best go at that name, is a French medieval folk band, and Kingdom Come is not necessarily an album or an EP made to be included in their works, but is meant to function as an alternate, unofficial soundtrack to a video game, specifically the game Kingdom Come Deliverance, developed by Warhorse Studios and released in February of 2018. And not at the behest of the game's developer, by the way. This is purely a fan project that could be modded into your game in place of the real soundtrack, which, while certainly well produced and a joy to listen to, was by no means historically fitting for a game that prided itself on its historic accuracy. So over the course of 30 tracks, this band lays out an authentic replacement, including tracks specific for certain moments and times of the day. It is all performed with medieval era instruments like lutes, hurdy-girders, dingle-dangs, crumhorns, and fiddles. Only one of those is made up. I'll let you guess which one that was. On its own, I mean, if you're open to this thing, it's totally listenable, and I imagine would be a fitting accompaniment to a number of other gaming experiences, which is all well and good because Warhorse didn't seem to like that the band was associating their album with the game, even though it's a really sweet love letter to a game that clearly meant something to them. So the album art was changed and the album renamed to just Kingdom Come. There is something beautiful not only about the music contained in this, but the effort and devotion poured into into something that was purely a passion project that probably isn't going to appeal to many outside a micro niche of people who played this game and thought, you know what, this soundtrack isn't doing it for me. I could be more immersed, and I'm willing to seek out third-party means of doing so. So certainly, if you're someone like that, you're in luck. Unrequited is a Canadian, one-man, depressive black metal project, and Stars Wept Into the Sea is his sophomore full-length album. There isn't a whole lot of information available about who this person is, but they operate under the Japanese character Oni, meaning demon. This album marks an impressive departure from their first offering, Disquiet. While that one, enjoyable as it was, stuck pretty strictly to depressive and shoegaze-influenced black metal tropes, this new album is bigger, grander, with a triumphant air to it. Not only has production quality increased, but it feels more ambitious and unique. It's more symphonic and cinematic sounding. There are some heavenly clean female vocals and sparkling keys in between familiar agonized screams. Lyrically, that is exactly what they are. Other than the smattering of clean vocals, I don't think there were lyrics in mind for this project, because it is mostly just sustained screams, which is not a slight at them because I think they are very powerful and emotional. If you enjoyed the first album, there is plenty of that still here, like walls of tremolo-picked guitar and melancholic atmosphere. It's just a little more playful and willing to experiment with genre conventions. One moment it's just pummeling and pained, and then we'll take a magical interlude to soft vocals and the sound of thunder and birds chirping. It really adds this narrative quality to it. I like seeing this project's individuality starting to bud, and I look forward to whatever they put out next, and thanks to the slow pace at which I put out these videos, I won't have to wait more than a couple of weeks for the next album.
There ain't nobody sales. There ain't nobody gonna tell me what to do. Check this right here!
Melvins are an American sludge rock, if that's a term, band that have been around a very long time and put out something like 30 albums over that time. And what might be their 30th album, titled Pincus Abortion Technician, was released April 20th. Over their long career, they've been difficult to pin down and label, and age has only seemed to embolden them to that. There are certainly familiarities and staples they've developed over time, but now more than ever does it sound like they are really just throwing every idea they have into this shared artistic blender and then sending it straight to print. I never quite know what I'm going to get going into one of their albums. From what I can discern, this new album seems to somewhat lean harder into a psych rock direction, even going as far as including a Beatles cover, but that doesn't mean this theme isn't frequently interrupted by trademark Melvin's wackiness. I don't have a whole lot to say about this one that others probably covered more extensively, but Melvins are an old standby. If they put something out, I'm probably going to listen to it. I'm probably going to like half of it, be confused by a fourth of it, and be put off by the rest of it. And in this case, that was probably the Beatles cover. Chrome Corpse are an American EBM group, and Pressurizer 4 is an EP released April 21st. Being a huge fan of early industrial and EBM, hearing this EP was like an intense flood of euphoric nostalgia. Like, these guys fucking nail the sound. Tons of loud, harsh metallic instrumentation, movie quotes and samples, grimy synths and gruff, authoritative vocals. It pulls from a lot of formative bands for me, like Frontline Assembly and Nitzer Ebb. I mean, they pretty much list all of them on their Bandcamp page, and sure enough, that's what they sound like. Anyhow, these guys are doing the Lord's work over there, because though it baffles me, late 80s to early 90s EBM is in alarmingly short supply. So I hope they keep at it. I don't know if my heart could take any more abandonment. Total Self-Hatred, said with no spaces, is a Finnish depressive black metal band, and Solitude is their third full-length album released on April 27th. This album breaks their 7-year silence and is a fantastic return to form, having come out around the time of a substantial wave of depressive melancholic black metal bands that I can't pronounce, like Amesoirs and Austere and Lantlos. And Woods of Desolation, thank you for making that one easy on me. Total Self-Hatred continues to tap into that energy, but is clearly matured and doesn't feel like a remnant of that wave. It feels modern and made with renewed intensity. Any leftover or retreaded ground is at the very least delivered impeccably. I love how strained and unrelenting the vocals are, just raw and emotional, with lyrics switching between English and Finnish, and all of them, well, you might have guessed it, expressing an extreme distaste for life. The thing is, I know it's like a trope of this genre that, we're gathered here for the mutual exploration of sadness, depression, and suicidal thoughts, but there are some bands that I really get a genuine sense of that from. This band feels really fucking sad, and in a beautiful and punishing, abrasive way. None of this should describe something I find super enjoyable, but it does. It really does. Stoicism is an American one-man progressive melodic death metal project, and Behind the Sun is his second full-length album, released on April 27th. This was one of few records on here that I went into sort of blind and on a whim, and really enjoyed myself. In truth, what Stoicism seems to embody is a well-covered spring of ideas and sounds like black and death metal, but I almost feel like this guy distills those ideas into these pure specimens, and then lightly prods at them with progressive elements and interesting time signatures, so you really feel and focus on those variations and breaks from form. It's weirdly original and unique, even though it seems to be housed in something rather by the numbers. It will often break into acoustic segments before ramping up in intensity with these near meditative riffs. Every piece of this project is clearly technically proficient and impeccably performed, and doubly impressive considering it's one fucking dude. One dude that apparently wasn't good enough being gifted at one thing, had to do everything. So you really get this sense of a singular, consistent vision being controlled by someone who really knows what he's doing. I was very pleasantly surprised by this album because I initially just wanted sort of background noise black metal, but my attention kept being pulled away because I thought, hang on, this is noteworthy. I was just going to refresh my memory on it while I was writing this, and I still ended up listening to the whole thing, and it is not a short album. Dwaradelf is an English one-man Tolkien-based epic black metal project, and The Sons of Feanor is his second full-length album, released on April 30th. I can't stress enough how married to Tolkien and Middle-earth this album and indeed this project is. If a subgenre could be set aside for Tolkienian black metal, this would be an excellent example of it. It starts off at a slow pace with grim, raspy vocals accompanied by fantastic, clean chanting vocals and symphonic synths. The black metal in this album is really spread out between its folk and medieval elements, and it very rarely breaks from its slow, marching pace, but naturally, as the story being told here leads to war and death, the pace picks up and the lyrics become darker. So despite the vocals and guitar work, you'll constantly be aware that this is a love letter to Tolkien, and in this case the Silmarillion in particular. It really reminds you how nerdy black metal was from the beginning, and why I initially connected with it. I mean, this album reads lyrically as a faithful and accurate interpretation of some deep lore from the Tolkien universe, with no secondary motive other than it's, like, fucking rad. Alright, thank you for watching video 3 of this. These, in truth, are not difficult to make, and I should be able to make them quicker, but I don't, and I'm sorry about that, if you care. If you wanted me to stop doing these a long time ago, I apologize for that as well. I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry for everything. Thank you for watching.